Hello everybody, Shooty here. Take two on this video. Lens cap over the microphone. That's all you're getting. I got sucked. I'm getting sucked back into Call of Duty again by a friend. To be clear, I'm not purchasing the new Call of Duty. He has purchased a copy with his own money and is sending it to me in the mail. So, um, yeah, I'm just plain Jane not wasting money on Call of Duty anymore, and the only reason why I'm playing this next COD is just because a friend of mine wanted a pal to play with, and I am more than happy to oblige playing the game with him because I know what it's like to have a game that you like and you like playing, but then it's like you don't have a pal to play with, so I'm more than happy to help him out with that. So, that being said, before I get into the next one, though, I want to unlock a very specific skin, and the way you have to do it is you have to max out your player level, and you can't do that if you play Modern Warfare 3. So, long story short, my name's Jeff. Anyway, shut up, Hunter. Um, the best way that I shouldn't say the best way. One of the quickest ways to level up in Modern Warfare 2 is to play DMZ. There's just a lot more opportunity for a player to get a bunch of XP in a short amount of time. So that's what I am doing is I'm playing DMZ. Uh, and I feel the strong need to talk about it because DMZ is like both the most it is a mixed bag of emotions for me. So I'll explain that shit later. Or as I'm going along, you might be able to pick up where my mixed emotions come from. So, to begin, what is DMZ? DMZ is Call of Duty or Activision's attempt at an extraction shooter. What is an extraction shooter? An extraction shooter is a game mode where the player is dropped into a map either alone or with a 2 or 3 man squad or something like that. And your objective is to loot as much stuff as possible and then extract without dying. Extraction shooters are permadeath games where when you die, that's it, game over, and then on top of that, you lose any gear you brought with you into the zone. So it's a high stakes, high rewards gameplay mode. And to top it all off, it is a PvP/PvE mode, meaning that there are NPCs roaming around, but there are also players roaming around, and the players roaming around want loot just as bad as you do. So that means you're competing for the loot. Now, and then outside of the game mode is they're usually outside of the main game mode. There's a marketplace where the player can take the loot they have gotten and sell it or buy stuff for themselves for the next time they deploy, stuff that might give them an edge. What now? Now DMZ in particular. Now let's focus on DMZ. I've explained what an extraction shooter is. Let me explain what DMZ has on offer. Now I don't know what other extraction shooters have compared to DMZ when it comes to the actual like in the zone stuff, but what DMZ has is strongholds, contracts, and then they have usually they have zone bosses. So I'll start with the zone bosses because this is relatively simplistic. But essentially, the zone bosses, what it sounds like, they're like bosses you can find within the map. There's a couple of bosses that carry over between a few maps, and then there's a few bosses that are exclusive to certain maps or certain parts of maps. I won't get into all of them here. Well, maybe I will. There's the one that carries over pretty much between all the maps is like the commander, the DMZ commander, which is like a guy in an attack helicopter. Um, there's the pyro, who's like this guy who hides out in a specific. He hides out in different strongholds throughout the map. So to reach him, you have to have a key to get into the building he's in to begin with, and then on top of that, you will usually have some sort of. Uh, he'll usually have some sort of like riot shield, and then like a shotgun with like uh, it's incendiary rounds basically, or something like that. And then he's like heavily armored, so he's tough to kill. There's a juggernaut. There's let's see here. There's on one of the maps. There's a guy called the Bomb Maker. Oh, there's a zone in Al Mazrah, which is like radioactive, and then within the radioactive zone, there's a boss called the Chemist. I'm not going to explain them all to you. This is redundant. The point is there's these different bosses, and you get different rewards for killing them. One of the most sought after ones is any boss carrying a weapons case. So if you kill the boss and get the weapons case, it gives you like a part to a weapon blueprint, and then if you get all the parts to the weapon blueprint, it unlocks a new weapon blueprint for you to use on one of your guns. The Chemist has a particular weapon that you can only unlock. Well, now you can only unlock if you kill him in DMZ and then extract with his weapon, except that's not true. So there is I don't know if this is not really a bug, but you might be able to. It's not a bug, actually. It's not. You can extract with weapons you have not unlocked with out of DMZ, and it unlocks them for you in the rest of the game. At least ones that were included in DLC. I don't know if that counts like ones you have to unlock through leveling up. So bear that in mind. If it's like a main game gun, probably not gonna work. But other guns, it will work. DLC guns. So the Chemist has the M13B, which for a time, the only way you could get it is if you killed him and extracted with it. But by now, that weapon's in circulation enough to where you might actually run into like a couple of players using them. And you can, if you kill them and take their weapon, you can extract with it. The strongholds. I'll go back to strongholds real quick. I went on a tirade on this, and that's how I ended up discovering that my microphone was muted. So, the strongholds there's basically two types of strongholds. There's like I'll call them small strongholds, which are basically they're like the generic buildings you run into in the game, except they'll have like doors you can only unlock with a key card. And usually inside small strongholds, you can find some okay loot. Nothing spectacular. Like, you might find like a 3-plate vest in there. Or you might find a 2-plate. And, that's about the gist of it. You're not going to consistently find spectacular loot, but you might consistently find okay to good loot. The other strongholds are I call large strongholds, are basically buildings in the map that have a specific name, and they're locked with a unique key that you can only basically only unlock the building with a unique key. These keys are relatively rare to common to find. They only have 3 uses apiece. Sometimes you'll pick a key up though and only have like 1 use left. And then some of them you can't just like find, you have to actually like go buy or something like that. Now, I'm going to like be upfront with you about this right now. At least in Al Mazrah, most of these large strongholds are not worth your time or effort. Large strongholds always have heavily armored enemies, usually a couple of riot shields, like guys with riot shields. And then when you attack them, it triggers a thing where enemies will constantly come, like, respawn to try to retake the building, essentially. Or at least kill whoever's in the building. So, for the most part, these strongholds are completely not worth your time or effort because the loot inside is never consistent, ever. Sometimes you'll go in and you'll find some good stuff. Sometimes you'll go in and there's nothing good inside the building. Okay? It is not worth your time going into most large strongholds, with the one exception. The one exception to this rule is the shopping mall in El Mazra. What makes the shopping mall special is everything about it. So the shopping mall, as far as I'm aware, there are no keys in the map to unlock the shopping mall. I have never witnessed a key for the shopping mall. If they do exist, they're extremely rare. But that's okay. You don't need a key to get into the shopping mall because you can get into the shopping mall through the roof or a side vent. There's a side vent on the side of the building where there's a police station. I found this out by accident one day when I was watching my mini map while I was in the mall, and I witnessed some players drive a vehicle up to the side of the building. So I left, and by then I had all the loot in the building. So even if those guys, those guys basically came in and found nothing, or were gonna go in and find nothing. But basically, I went around and found out that they parked their vehicle right underneath the vents so they could climb in, and to cap off that particular story real quick, I tried to go into the vent and kill them, and I managed to get 2 of them down and killed, but then the third guy came back through the vent and killed me. So, it was pretty sus. Anyway. Anyway. There's the vent, there's 2 open skylights, and there's like 2 ladders plus an elevator that can get you into the shopping mall. There's many ways to get into the shopping mall without a key. And this is actually a good thing. Not just because you can get in the mall without the key, but because enemy NPCs cannot unlock doors. So, when you enter the shopping mall and you alert the enemies inside, enemies on the outside of the mall cannot enter. Even if, like, sometimes they land on the roof. Like, they'll land on the roof from a helicopter. I think their pathfinding is broken because they can't find a way to get into the mall. So they usually just gather on the roof and like, yell, I can't see him. So enemies cannot get inside the mall. Okay? That's the long and short of it. After you kill the enemies inside the mall, you are going to be greeted with the best loot pile in the entirety of DMZ. We're talking like, you consistently come in here and will find self-revive kits. You won't always find 3 armor plate vests and large backpacks, but you have decent chances of finding those here. And if you don't find them here, you'll find like at least 30 grand, and that's like half the money you need to buy one of any of those. So there's just plenty of opportunity here to make money and get loot. It's consistent. Every time you come here, there's tons of shit inside this mall for you, the player, to arm yourself, to get money, and all that kind of jazz. If you're not finding 3 armor plate vests, that's fine. There's plenty of 2 armor plate vests if you need one. There's plenty of medium backpacks if you need one. There's just plenty in this building. So, the shopping mall is the best place in the entire map to loot. And then the third reason why it's such a good fucking place is it's like a hidden gem somehow. I never find players in here. I know 4 instances where I ran into enemy players inside this mall. One of them is in one of my YouTube videos. It's a Shooty McShooty video. It's the one where I crouch walk around a corner, and then there's like enemies standing there, and they shoot at me, and I run out, and I teleport out of the building. The second time was the guys inside the vent. And then like the other 2 times, it was like, I came in, and it turned out there was a couple guys looting already, and I was able to kill them all, and then take the shit. So, the mall is consistently a good place to loot, and nobody fucking comes here. I I am like flabbergasted how this place is like not like a hotbed for activity. You would feel like a place like this where you get this in a extraction shooter where you consistently can find loot. There aren't like a bunch of people here to get the loot, and then on top of that, there's people who play DMZ who just like killing other people, and I'm surprised those people don't flock here just to fucking kill people who are trying to loot. It baffles my mind that it's not. This place is like completely empty almost all the time. I I am shocked, which is why I call it my secret fishing hole because there's like nobody here. And I'd feel bad about talking about it in a YouTube video, except nobody watches my channel, so yay me. But it is a stupid good place to come, and nobody comes here. And then all the other large strongholds are not worth it. Me and my friend have been in most of them, and every time we get a key and open one up, it's like opening up a fucking paper bag full of dog shit. It's just like, why even bother? So there's contracts also. The contracts are built around basically, they're like, you pick up a contract, and if you complete it, you get a cash award, and then sometimes they give you intel on the map, like, oh, you could find this boss here, or, yeah, generally that's what the intel does, is it reveals the position of zone bosses to you, which isn't actually a bad thing. It's a good way to get basically your, if you don't know where, like, some of them are, because they're not really marked all the time. Like the helicopter commander, I'm pretty sure he doesn't show up until you've killed enough NPCs in an area, and then he'll show up basically. Um, the Juggernaut, sometimes you know where he is because he's carrying the weapon case. So that's one way you can find him, and that's used to be how you can consistently find him. But then they like put the weapon case on the train sometimes. Sometimes they give the weapon case to the pyro. So sometimes you'll just be walking in an area, and then the game will tell it's like a low like threat area, and like the fucking announcer is like, "Oh, watch out! There's a Juggernaut near you," and it's like, "Yeah, okay." And then the Juggernaut will like stealth up right behind you and like dump his minigun into your back and kill you like instantly. So sometimes the whole like getting intel from like contracts isn't even that bad of a thing. It's actually kind of a neat little bonus on top of like the albeit kind of minuscule cash reward you get, because, and I say minuscule because they've increased the prices on a lot of the gear and stuff you can buy out of the shops in the game. So it's kind of like not like almost not worth it, like financially speaking, to do contracts. Although there's one other benefit to contracts, is that when you complete a contract and you extract from the zone, you are given a perk. It's called a extraction streak, believe it or not. And every time you extract for at least 10 or 12 extractions, you can get a perk, which these are very helpful. The problem is building up a good streak is very difficult. Not impossible. I've had extraction streaks where I'm up in like the 10s and 20s and stuff, but to get there, it was kind of monotonous for me in particular, because the way me and my friend were doing it is we were extracting a specific way every time, and eventually that does kind of get boring. So bear that in mind. I'll get more into that in a little bit on extractions and stuff. But just know that that's like one of the other benefits to doing the contracts. Now, the one other thing I'll mention about the main part of the game, real quick, is they have they're called like missions. They're basically like player challenges, like, you know, extract with a certain amount of money, or go to this certain location and find this specific item and extract with it. Stuff like that, basically. And basically little missions you can do, challenges you can do, and they give you XP and level up. Help you level up. So, they're there, but, other than that, though, that's about all you get out of DMZ when it comes to what there is to do. And then, so that this is just going to lead me into the what is the point of this game mode part. So, I mentioned earlier that most extraction shooters, you bring the loot you get in the zone with you outside of the zone. And to be clear, that loot isn't just it isn't just like bits and baubles. It's usually like extra gear and stuff like that. You can't do that in DMZ. When you extract, the only stuff you get to keep is the weapons in your inventory, or not your inventory, but like, or yeah, your inventory. So if you have like a backpack weapon and then plus your sidearm and your primary weapon, you get to keep those. If you have a kill streak in your kill streak slot, you get to keep that. If you have a gas mask in your gas mask slot, you get to keep that. A self-revive kit in your self-revive slot, you get to keep that. Grenades in the grenade slots, you get to keep those. Equipment, you get in the equipment slot, you get to keep that. Why do my dogs gotta be like this? And then, money in your wallet. After that, after all of that, everything else you've picked up is turned into XP at extraction. So, if you have like you have like two wallets. You have a wallet that comes with you into DMZ, and basically what that means is you can extract with like a chunk of money, and then if your outside of DMZ wallet is full, you bring that money back in with you into DMZ, which is a good thing because then you can buy gear if you need it or something like that. But besides that, any extra cash you end up picking up is turned into XP. Any extra gear you pick up, so let's say you decide to pick up an extra 3-slot vest and to store away, it doesn't work like that. It gets turned into XP. Extra backpacks are turned into XP. Everything extra is turned into XP. So when you come out, you'll have like an inventory for extra weapons, but beyond that, there's nothing for you. And you can't buy gear outside of DMZ, like outside of the zone, to like supplement. And you can't trade weapons you have outside the zone. You can't, none of that shit. You can only just accumulate, and that's it. So there's like nothing to DMZ outside of the zone. And like, you might be thinking, well, that's not all that bad, right? You said you get the money and all that, and it's like, but the thing is that money is like useless outside the zone. You have to bring it in. So let's say you die, and it's like, okay, I'll just buy new gear. You could bring that money into the zone to buy new gear, and then there's like a strong chance you'll get killed on your way to get the gear. Or then you might get killed that match after you bought the gear. So there's like no point outside of the zone. You can extract certain bits and baubles to complete challenges that upgrade your like inventory stuff and all that. But for the most part, that like, again, to what end does that, like, to what end? Like the ones that are probably worth it is extra insured weapons and the insured weapon cooldown. So to be clear real quick, most of the time in DMZ when you buy something or when you die with something, you permanently lose it. But insured weapons, while you do lose it while you're in the zone, you can get a new one afterwards. After like a cooldown happens, and the insured weapon is basically a guaranteed weapon. So even if you died with all of your inventory weapons and stuff, eventually you can get a new gun without having to drop into DMZ without any weapons, which is a fun way to play in my opinion sometimes, is to drop in with absolutely nothing. Uh, Mainly because it's more satisfying when you leave with everything. Um, but beyond that, like, there's nothing to this game mode. There's like no like purpose to it, and that doesn't mean like you can't find purpose in it, but like it feels empty in comparison to what you get out of something like Tarkov or whatever, where there's like stakes to all of your gear, and you can accumulate gear, which is good for subsequent playthroughs and stuff like that. You don't get that out of DMZ. So you're stuck in this like perpetual cycle of like dying with all your shit and then having to reaccumulate it. And reaccumulating it is a fucking nightmare. Uh I have had situations like I used to have a full weapon inventory, and then but my friend stopped playing for a while, so I was just playing by myself, which was a bad idea because literally like in the span of 2 days I lost every weapon I've ever collected, and now I'm down to like nothing. And it's incredibly infuriating. And it's not just players who kill you; it's like NPCs. Sometimes the NPCs in this game are extremely like inconsistent. Sometimes you go in and the NPCs are like uh recruit level, where they just like will miss your shots constantly and stuff like that. And then other times they're like on point. Like there's been a few times where the very like low level NPC with the double barrel shotgun has killed me. It's incredibly infuriating to drop into a DMZ match after you've lost everything, and then you're trying to get gear only to be like swarmed by thousands of NPCs. Urban areas are especially horrid for this. In urban areas, there's like basically a limitless amount of NPCs, especially since they keep respawn, like they spawn in new ones and deliver them in helicopters as you're killing them. So like it's basically this like endless cycle, and it can be very hard to break the cycle of being down and out and at least getting to a point where you're like comfortable with all your gear and shit. Um, they did add in this thing later on. Like at first, it used to be just like you had one operator, but then they added in a thing where you get multiple operators, so you can have like different loadouts for each operator, which was kind of nice. I don't know if it necessarily fixes anything in particular, but it sure as hell makes the it makes the I guess the way I would say is it makes the whole dying thing not as bad, but it's still like it it makes no sense because it's like you can't go in with like another operator with gear, collect gear, and bring it back, and then give it to an operator who doesn't have gear. You have to collect that gear with the operator you're playing as. So it's kind of like so basically the issue with this system that I see is that the when you're collecting gear for an operator, right? And then you rotate to a different operator, you're not going to have that gear, so you have to collect it again. So I think the idea behind the system is supposed to be that you have extra gear back at base, technically, except it's not the same as, again, like Tarkov, where Tarkov, you have extra gear sitting for you in an inventory. Instead, you have extra gear on another operator that you're going to have to grind to get back to where you were before with that operator. And we're not talking just about gear. We're also talking about exfil streak, because that's part of it too. Is you have an exfil streak. In fact, it does kind of present an issue where if you have an operator who has a smaller exfil streak than another operator, it's like, well, now I'm slightly worse off on this guy, and I'm gonna have to grind to get him to where I need to be. You can only collect one exfil streak per exfil, which sounds stupid, and you can only collect an exfil streak
when you are completing contracts, or if you're in Al Mazrah and you go into the bunker, the Koshi complex, I think it's called. That's also when you're allowed to get an exfil streak. But beyond that, you can't just like jump in the map, gather some loot, and then leave and get an exfil streak. That doesn't count as an exfil. So you have to actually like do contracts to at least a contract. You have to do a singular contract to get an exfil streak. So again, the extra operator system, I think the idea behind it is oh, look, you have extra gear back at base, but it doesn't work like that. It works more like oh, that's great. Now I'm going to have to grind Captain Price back up to get his gear back, and my other operator, my ghost operator, though he's got all this stuff, but he didn't have the same exfil streak that Captain Price did. Uh, so I guess you're like expected to rotate through operators in this way, but again, like why would I? Like it kind of adds extra work to it, and it makes it less uh pliable the way they mean it. And like I said before, it's just kind of like I think most people don't even bother with the extra operators. I think most people just play the game as the same operators over and over again. But I could be wrong.
You know, it's just not a very particularly good system, and it makes it feel like there's no point to any of it. Even the PvP. So, while some people enjoy PvP, I don't in this game mode for a couple of reasons. One is that in the PvP in this game mode, it does kind of feel like that it heavily relies on uh it heavily relies on the who saw who first factor. Getting the drop on an enemy team can be life or death in this game. So, like, for instance, uh, earlier in this particular video, if you were actually watching, it was probably while I was talking about the loot and stuff like that. You might notice there was a clip of me ambushing I'm not even ambushing. I ran into a team of 3 enemy operators while recording this footage, and I ended up like killing all 3 of them and taking their shit. Like you would think, oh, 1 guy versus 3 in this game mode, that sure means the odds are heavily weighed against you. And it kind of really isn't like that. To this game's credit, a 1v3 does not necessarily mean you're going to die. It could mean like what it should mean is your skill would outweigh and all that, and it kind of does. But at the same time, it's kind of like a thing where it's like not difficult for 1 guy to take out 3 guys as long as he gets the drop on them. But vice versa, the vice versa is like that 1 guy who's alone. If somebody gets the drop on you, that's it. You're fucked. Because whoever starts shooting first is generally the one who wins an engagement. It doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't always mean that, but generally speaking, when you come face to face with an enemy player, whoever's got more rounds in their magazine and whoever can get more rounds into the enemy player is the one who's going to win. And generally speaking, the ones who lose are the ones who don't get the most rounds out. So that's why getting like the drop on enemy players in this game is kind of like a big deal. For a short, when the game first came out, they had this like thing where it's like kill or be killed. Eventually, though, they added it in a system where you can recruit people into your squad, and at first, like, the system was like, how do I like even explain this? So when they first implemented the system, it was broken. So when you jump into DMZ, you can only have a squad of 3 players. However, you can add more players to your squad up to um, up to at 6 operators in your squad, which means you literally can have a 6-man squad, and this was completely fucking broken because you'd be like all by your lonesome, just minding your own business, trying to like crack open a safe or kill a DMZ boss, and then a 6-man squad would roll in and fuck you up. And you have zero chances against a 6-man squad of a bunch of guys all hyped up on Adderall. Like, it's just not gonna fucking happen. You're not gonna fucking win that engagement. Um, and I think, luckily for us, the players, Activision realized this so quickly. They fixed the system so it's only uh, like 4-man squads, which not great, but you know what? I think a 4-man squad is like significantly less shitty than a 6-man squad. Um, so that being said, there is like the squad mechanics in this game are not like particularly great either. If you're not playing with people you know, like, I shouldn't say mechanics, but squatting up in this game can actually sometimes be worse than having, like, being by yourself if you're not playing with people you know. If you're playing with people you know, having a squad is a really good thing because you're all, like, on the same page, you all have basically the same goals, and you're working together cohesively. Working with randos in this game is a fucking nightmare. Whether that's you don't have microphones, so you're not communicating with each other. So, like, everybody just, like, in the beginning of the match runs in 3 different directions, and nobody's actually working together. So, you'll be, like, at the docks looting a fucking toolbox for a bottle of water, and your friend is in Al Mazrah City getting stomped by a fucking 5-man squad, dying. So, like, it's like, what's the fucking point of having, you know, squad mates if you don't have people you know? I guess is what I'm trying to say. Uh, and then on top of that, like, and then like even when you have people with mics, half of the time they don't want to do what you want to do, even if you like. I was in a match with some random people. I normally have my mic turned off, but my friend who plays DMZ with me, he doesn't have group chat muted, so he can hear other players and stuff like that through proximity chats and stuff like that. So eventually I decided to turn it on because I figured, why not? It probably wouldn't be that bad if I needed to talk to people. And holy shit, dude, they never let it ever, like, no, like I said, nobody wants to listen to each other in this game either, even when they have mics. So there's like 0 point to it. Uh, I'm literally trying to lead like these guys to the mall to get really good loot, but they want to like do stupid shit instead. Like, we could do that, but first let's go to this stronghold. I bet we can find some good loot in this stronghold. Like, you asshole! I'm literally trying to lead you to the promised land. I'm loot in this tiny stronghold, my man. I'll show you treasures beyond your wildest dreams. No, I don't want to do that. I want to go do my thing. It's like, okay, fine. And then they complain when you separate. Oh, it's your fault. I died because you ran away from me. It's like, not my fault you're not good at this game. Uh, but yeah, so I generally keep my mic turned off because I can't stand talking to randos and shit. Having people you know and play with this game, it's great fun, but not having people you know with you is a complete nightmare. Being by yourself, it's a big risk, but sometimes I find it relaxing to be by myself because while this game has in my opinion, some strong shortcomings, in terms of like what it does as an extraction shooter, what it makes up for sort of is just it kind of feels like you're playing almost like a Fallout game. You just have this big open map with like hostiles in it and tons of like loot to go run around and grab. It feels like you're kind of almost like playing a Fallout game. And I like that. And it's like a shame too because it's like you see this and it's like Activision's devs could make a really banging like RPG, almost like Fallout or some shit like that, but they're stuck to making Call of Duty all the time, and it sucks Because it's like you see this, and it's like if you tweaked shit just right, you would have probably a really cool co-op PvE only uh looter shooter or RPG maybe even or something like that. Something where the players can like just chill and have fun and shoot some like robots. Like that this to me like would be like top tier gameplay material if they had that available to them. Uh the NPCs real quick to go uh, kind of like to really quick circle back to some stuff about being ambushed and all that. This rule applies to NPCs a bit too, believe it or not. Like, if there's like an NPC with an LMG is a fucking that is like nightmare material in this game mode. I just want to make that clear to everybody, especially heavily armored enemies with LMGs. One guy with an LMG, he can take out your armor and down you if you're not paying attention. It the NPCs in this game are cracked out and they're not something to be, you know, ignored necessarily, especially when they're swarming you, and it's a fucking nightmare when they're swarming you. So this game mode's not like super easy, and that's kind of a good thing. At the same time, I feel like there could be some adjustments made to make things not as annoying. And the biggest thing that this game mode needs is a loot pool where when you leave the extract or when you leave the zone and you extract with like an extra backpack, you could store the extra backpack and then use it for later. But they don't have that. And I don't think we're gonna get any more improvements to DMZ, unfortunately. Modern Warfare 3, they opted out of having DMZ and instead chose to have a terrible zombies mode. Like, again, so unfortunately, I don't think we're getting any more DMZ content, which is unfortunate. I feel like with enough tweaking and shit, DMZ would be like a gold standard in what you can and can't do with like an extraction shooter, which sucks. Again, like big open Call of Duty can be fun. I think like the best, what is it called? Battle Royale that Call of Duty ever had was Blackout. Controversially, Blackout was just big enough, like the map was just big enough where a player could actually like see the entire map in one match. And then on top of that, like they didn't have like the stupid what's the word I'm looking for here? Loadouts. So all the players had. This is not a Blackout review. Shut the fuck up, Hunter. Yeah. So all in all, DMZ, it's an okay game. I feel like you could polish this gem and make it into a diamond, but it's just not going to happen, which is frustrating because this is like one of those things where I hate it. I love playing it, but I hate playing it. It just gets incredibly frustrating. I didn't even get into like some of the other shit. Like there's like secret bunkers in places, and then there's just tons of other shit that goes into this game mode, which makes it worthwhile playing. But I'm not getting into it right now because I think I've said enough about the game mode. It's just like there's a bunch in it, but it's shallow. I guess the best way I could describe it is like baseline Call of Duty is like a puddle, and then DMZ is like just a bigger puddle. There's a lot to look at, a lot to see, but it's like shallow once you actually put your foot into it, and that's kind of a detriment to it. There's like a couple elements they can tweak, and they can make and add just enough depth to make it a lot more fun to play. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about this. Take care, everybody. Goodbye.